Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. Let's check YouTube, see if we're on YouTube. Can you check Slav, see if we're on YouTube? Yeah, it looks like it. Season 5 of the Haney Potcast, started by Jenny and Jax. We're still here. Why are we still here? Because patients are still suffering and dying, and our government does not care. That's why we're here. We want home grow. We don't want corporate cannabis. We want home grow. We want to grow it with our tomatoes. We're here today with the Coalition for Medical Marijuana. Ken and Amanda are here. Slav's here. I don't know what that means, why that happens. I watched it on my computer. All right, so the YouTube link on my computer works, but the YouTube link on the mobile does not work. That's weird. You got a mic there? Yeah. Hey, Slav, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How about you, Lefty?
I feel like crap. Thanks for asking, though. Well, this is why I play these long-ass songs in the beginning, so I make sure everything's working, and it's not. This is what I go through. Oh, another year of this. Oh, my God. That's a nice shot, though. We got a nice shot of the State House sign. Yes, happy 420. We're out here on 420. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Roll 'em if you don't. As a matter of fact, thank you for reminding me. Big smoke out here at the State House. The news is here. Hi, Kim. Thank you. What's that?
Your bracelet,
It wore out, so you give it back to me. What am I supposed to do? Reprint it for you? Really? That's so hurtful. No, keep it, and I'll. That was what Sativa Cross, right? Mine wore. I'm surprised it didn't break off. Usually they break off and they go flying. Look, all mine broke too. We'll talk in a minute. This is our theme song. We play this every year until you're sick of it.
Bring in the boss one. I'm gonna get mine. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Don't tell me how you all be down. When you're smiling in my face, but you play me like a clown and you fool bitch. So just step back. Or I'm mad dad when I come down straight. I thought you were my piece, but you play me out. Now I'm mad as hell and I'm full of doubt. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll. I'm back on the scene. It's time to get mean. I'm a lean revolution machine. For what people stay, they sway. For today is good as any day. Y'all feel slightly this, let's resist. Raise your fist and pump like this. Promises all the time. Don't cross the line, and you know it's mine. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Trenton State House. Happy 420. And I'm in the weeds, so I need a host. Where's my host? I can only do so much as one person and get a show off the ground. Just so you know, there was no power here, so I'm running without power off my poor little truck right now. But it's happening. Ken Wolski's here. Peter Rosenfeld's here. The Coalition for Medical Marijuana, New Jersey. Come on in, guys. Grab some headphones. Good work. You got to talk right into that sucker, too. Can you hear it? Okay. Sorry, I don't have a stand for you, Ken. Talk right into that sucker. I can't hear you.
What?
There you go. There you go.
How are you doing today, Lefty?
I'm horrible. My
that's
back's killing me. This weather's hurting me, and I'm suffering, man.
Here this morning.
Yep.
I was the first one here.
11 a.m. Lefty's here. So it was so nice when I got here. You know, I knew Lefty was here, and I said, you know, all is right with the world.
It never ends. We're always here, rain or shine. And without power, too, today. How are we doing this without power? I don't know.
So you're powering it with your sparkling personality, you say? How long is that going to last?
Yeah, we're going to switch you off here.
There you go. You're going to make me hold it. Here, wait a minute.
I think I gave you a bad mic. Sorry about that. I'm in the weeds. This is how I look when I'm in the weeds. Point and laugh. Yes, go ahead. This is how I look when I'm in the weeds. On the weed. Not on the weed, in the weeds. So welcome to another year of podcasting here at the State House.
So what's your schedule been this year? So here it is, April 20th, 2019. Are you back doing regular podcasts here at the State House?
Yeah, we'll be back every week. We'll be here, except for a couple of weeks in May. We're going to Pure Puff Vapor Supply and a few and Death of the Fox. That's a nice place. It's a brewery and a coffee house.
Oh.
Where's that at?
Down in Clarksboro, by Sweeney's office.
Oh, nice. Convenient.
That's our home base when we go to see Sweeney.
But typically it's going to be the last Thursday of the month you're here.
The fourth Thursday of the month will be
fourth
podcasting.
Thursday.
But some people said they're going to give me their phones. My podcasting bill last year was $4,500.
Whoa. All right.
And it's mostly because of this thing and because me, sometimes I don't turn it off. And it's on for like, after the podcast, I'm driving home, it's still on. That's my fault, but still. So I'm trying to cut back to a weekly. But then yesterday, Cindy comes up to me and she says, you know what? You need to do this every week. Jackson Jenny started this thing. I'm like, yeah, you know, all right. So we'll do it every week. We just may not podcast every week. We'll just do a Facebook Live every week. So give me a minute to make sure we're good and ready to go. We got
Ken, what's the schedule today?
Yes.
So, I forgot to bring a schedule.
It's 420. It's
yes,
okay.
yes, I love it.
So we're playing it by ear here. You know, we certainly didn't expect the technical difficulties that we're working to overcome. But we're here today from 12 to 2 here at the State House Annex, and we are here to support the bill in the legislature to legalize marijuana in New Jersey. The bill is S-2703. We're very disappointed that it didn't pass last month when it just fell a couple of votes short in the Senate. Now, you know, this bill is really a good bill. I know there are some criticisms of it, and it's not a perfect bill, but we have to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because this is a very good bill. It's actually a model bill for the entire country, according to the ACLU in New Jersey and the NAACP in New Jersey. This bill not only legalizes marijuana in this state, but it also addresses some of the very important social justice issues that are associated with the war on drugs. For example, it's dealing with expungement expungement of past marijuana offenses, so that these indiscretions, youthful indiscretions, as the politicians like to call them, don't follow people for the rest of their lives and impact what kind of employment opportunities are available, what kind of education is available, what kind of housing is available, what kind of family life is available to people. But beyond beyond the expungement issue, it also deals with social justice issues. It's making an effort to redo some of the harms that have been caused by the war on drugs. It's going to guarantee that a certain number of the licenses for the dispensaries and for the cultivation centers and for the processing centers go to minorities, go to women, and go to disabled veterans. So we're very happy about S2703. We're very disappointed that it didn't pass into the in the legislature last month, and we certainly hope that it passes in May.
It also has some nice features in it that a lot of states left out, like it establishes cannabis social clubs where people can consume cannabis, which is very useful. In Denver, a lot of people come there, there's no place they can use the cannabis. It's not allowed used in the hotels or restaurants or whatever. So New Jersey addresses a lot of the issues that have turned up in other states.
Right. Yeah, we, when the bill first came in, this bill has been working its way through the legislature. I believe the first bill to legalize marijuana in New Jersey was introduced by Senator Scutari in 2014. So, and there have been a number of bills with a number of different provisions ever since then in the last 5 years. The first bill said there would be no public use of marijuana, and we said, well, hey, we actually testified during a committee hearing that this was unfair to people who do not have a private place to use marijuana. If they're in public housing, they're not allowed to use marijuana in their apartments. And if you're saying they can't use it outside in public and they can't use it in their apartments, it becomes a cruel joke to them to say that marijuana is legal, but you can't use it inside your apartment and you can't use it outside your apartment. So anyway, they did attempt to address this.
Right. It's a very thoughtful bill. I'll give it that. It's also tie-barred, as they call it, though, to the S10 medical marijuana bill, a very important bill that improves the system quite a bit. Right now, you have to renew your recommendation every 3 months. This extends it to a year. It allows a doctor to make a recommendation for any condition he feels appropriate. Things like that. So we're very eager to get both bills passed. It will dramatically improve the system.
Right.
And people who have a short-term illness or don't want to go through the medical thing, they'll have the recreational approach for medical marijuana, which is why we support it.
Yes.
We see it as another path to medical use.
Absolutely. It changes marijuana from a drug that's more like a prescription drug where you have to have a specific diagnosis and you have to go back and forth to a doctor every so often to get a renewal to use this drug. It changes it from that to an over-the-counter drug that any adult can go into the store and use like aspirin. And now if marijuana could be available to them, that can really ease their suffering and make life a lot more enjoyable for them.
And also, it just makes it more practical. So I'm a medical marijuana patient. I have a card and everything, but let's say I'm hospitalized and can't go to a dispensary because I'm ill. I don't have a designated caretaker under the current system. To do that is quite a bit of work, fingerprinting and forms and all. With the S2703, I can just ask somebody to go get it for me and bring it in. It
Right.
really simplifies the whole thing. So,
Of course, use in hospitals is still problematic, but
Yes.
S10 is working on that with a provision for institutional caregivers,
Right.
so that people who work for healthcare facilities will be designated as a caregiver for the patients in those facilities, and they'll be able to go to the alternative treatment center
and that's a huge area. People in nursing homes, people in long-term care facilities,
Right.
all could benefit from medical marijuana. Currently, it's almost impossible for them to get it or use it.
Right. And it really, marijuana helps with to aid the typical problems that are associated with the end of life better than any other drug.
Absolutely.
It eases pain without over sedation. It raises your spirits. It increases your appetite, and it even can control bladder issues.
And helps with dementia outbursts and so on. It calms people down. It's great.
Right.
Yeah.
And right now, so many people who are in hospice just do not get this. So many people who are in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, qualify for medical marijuana, but they just cannot get it.
They take it away.
Yeah.
They take
Often,
it away.
yes.
Yeah.
And what a great addition to hospice care, when they'll be able to get it. Yeah.
Right. And Governor Christie, during the Christie administration, we passed a bill that would allow facilities, all the school districts in the state of New Jersey, to develop policies and procedures for the administration of medical marijuana for kids in the school districts. But it also included facilities for the developmentally disabled. Now, those facilities should be they should all by now certainly have policies and procedures to allow for the administration of medical marijuana to
They've had
qualified
9 years.
And how is that working? We contend that it's not working, and you really need how can a family member as a caregiver go into a facility for the developmentally disabled 2 or more times a day to administer drugs to that patient? It's an unworkable situation. You really need we need a different approach. We need caregivers within those institutions to administer the drugs just like they administer any other controlled substance.
That noise you hear in the background is the wind trying to blow us all away. It's a nice day today, but it's windy. So wear a hat.
I don't want to say anything, but the wind only picked up when Ed Honeyb came here.
That's true.
Grab that red mic there, Ed.
Is this stuff grounded?
Yes, we have
Ed asked if we're grounded.
No, you weren't here for the electrical
Yeah, we
problem.
missed it.
Yeah, we're grounded to Lefty's car.
Yeah, it's been a crazy morning.
Well, sure, Ed.
Sure, say something, Ed.
Go ahead.
Ed's a lawyer for the state, and he's one of our legal experts here, and he wants to say a few words about this important appellate court decision that happened recently. And
Was that ever an interesting decision?
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah,
Ed.
please.
Of course, I'm happy to hear marijuana is not. Can anybody hear me? I don't know.
No, not too well.
Give him your mic, Ken, please.
Yeah.
Sorry. Having issues there.
Now can everybody
There's
hear me?
Ed.
You can see. Well, I was just happy to hear it's good for mental illness because I expect to use it for that before I retire. So anyway, the appellate division, this is kind of encouraging and discouraging at the same time. And a man named Justin Wild worked for a funeral home, and he had cancer, and he used marijuana to treat the pain of his cancer. And of course, he was driving for a funeral. He was a funeral director. He did everything, including driving the hearse. He was going through an intersection, and some other driver ran a stop sign and crashed into him, and he was injured and taken to the hospital. And first thing he told the doctor was that he was on medication, including marijuana, and the doctor refused to test him because he said, the appellate division didn't quite characterize it the way the doctor said. The doctor was quite certain that he was showing no signs of any intoxication or of any type of inability to function. Is it working? No. Anyway, so he talked to his funeral home and everything. He went back to work, and they said everything was fine. And then the funeral home discharged him and said, because you're a drug addict. And then this is all the interesting part for an attorney. Within 2 or 3 days, corporate got involved and sent him a note and said, oh no, we're not discharging you because you're a drug addict and use marijuana. We're discharging you because you never told us you might be taking something that could cause an adverse effect on your employment. Now I have a question about this. That's why I called up the attorney on the case. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I volunteered Ken for an expert because this is just going to be remanded for an actual trial. But to me, I think it's a real dilemma for marijuana patients to have to say this could affect my job performance, because it really doesn't, as far as I know. I mean, there's dissipation. So you go to marijuana treatment at night, 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. You go to work the next day at 9 o'clock. I don't see any ill effects. Therefore, I don't see any reason to tell the employer that you're on something that could adversely affect your employment. You want to say something, Peter?
This is an issue all over the country, in every state that has medical and recreational marijuana, where people are being fired for use over the weekend, and then they test positive on metabolite test, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks later. So, and this is the first decision, I think, in the country that makes such a strong claim for medical use.
Right, but here's the part that really bothered me. In the Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act, it says, nothing in this act shall force an employer to accommodate the use of marijuana in the workplace.
Right, in the workplace.
Now, thank God the court looked at the word "in," not at any time in your life. They just in the workplace. But what the court also said was, and they looked at several other states. I'm trying to think of the other. Connecticut might have been one, Wisconsin, or Michigan probably, and said these other states had protection in their law. We don't. But this is the part that really galls me. It's like we have this CUMA, Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act, to help patients, and the court kind of said, at best, that act doesn't preclude you from claiming rights under the law against discrimination. So the court didn't use the Marijuana Act to protect employees or patients. They used the law against discrimination, where you have to show you have a disability, the employee knew of your disability, treated you adversely because of your disability, and then,
Right. The New Jersey LAD law, it's called NJLAD,
Yeah.
Law Against
Discrimination.
Discrimination,
Right.
right.
The problem is that I have to look at this myself. The court also said, and they replace you with someone with equal capability.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a giant loophole. They just could replace, like this man did everything. If they replaced him in a funeral home with someone, let's say, that just did work on the deceased and didn't, arrange the funeral, they could say this is not a person of equal qualification, so we can discriminate against them. Which
That's always the case with the anti-discrimination law for medical.
But they remanded this, so the problem is all they did. It's actually a very interesting procedural aspect. The plaintiff, Mr. Wild, sued them in New Jersey, and of course the funeral home immediately had to transfer it to the federal court. What we knew, they would win hands down.
Right.
In fact, they had dismissal for failure to state a cause of action, all these 12B motions in federal court, but he was able to amend the complaint to add some other New Jersey people, which busted the diversity jurisdictions. So the federal court washed its hands and said, back to New Jersey. And as you know, in New Jersey, at least we have the Medical Marijuana Act, and it's legal in this state. But we're still gonna see what happens in the trial, because the court left a lot of things open. All they did was say, you pled enough to get to a trial. And that's where experts like Ken would be involved to say you don't have an ill effect, and even if you didn't tell the employer, it doesn't matter. That there's no damage.
What do you think will happen in trial? What's your guess?
My guess is, unless he has a really good expert, that it's not going to go well, because again, and by the way, let me also say this too. One of his lawsuits, part of his lawsuit was defamation and slander, because the funeral, and this is true in a lot of employment, private employment, it's kind of a small area. And so the funeral home let it pass that they got rid of him because he was a druggie.
Right, now he can't work anywhere.
Right. So that poisoned him,
Yeah.
but this is where legalization comes in. Because it's still overall illegal, they can get away with stuff like that. If he had a drink at night, no one would say now he's an alcoholic. But because he used marijuana and it's still not completely legal, they were able to say, oh, he's a druggie, and that stigma, is affecting him. So,
Interesting case.
Yeah.
but I'm
that
just hoping good experts will help them on trial.
The one point you made, though, about not disclosing that the drug that he is on may affect his performance in the workplace, that's an individual policy of that particular organization. Am I not correct on that, Ed?
It's true, but I read corporate law reports, and they're gleeful to slam people for using marijuana. The prejudice in the button-down corporate world is enormous. They look for ways to get rid of people with marijuana, and I'm sure many employers have that, and if they don't, they will put that in there, and then make that at least an issue. That because you're right, I think it's an individual decision. I mean, it's not as if if you drank like 3 quarts of vodka the night before, you might still be hungover and unable to perform.
Well, would I be at risk if I took an antihistamine and I feel a little sleepy? I mean, and I didn't disclose to the.
You could. The thing is, you could take the antihistamine at work, but they would look at the actual effect on your conduct. I mean,
They wouldn't just assume that you're
right,
impaired.
right. Which marijuana
Right.
has that prejudice that it's, they on the way over here I was listening, they were playing some of the old Dragnet things where they said, marijuana is the fuse and heroin is the bomb, and it's like this lunacy continues to this day, and I don't think it will end until there's millions and hundreds of millions of people finding it helps them. And then you can't. It'll be impossible to denigrate anymore.
We just had a
Well-
state senator bring up all these old, it's going to make you crazy, I think is what he was saying, among other things. You'll go out and rape women and...
It's very disappointing. But the most disappointing to me was that we didn't get enough protection in the first act. I think
Right.
the new law is going to help that, right?
Does it have a provision increasing?
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
so
there
there's
are
more
some
protection,
enhanced employment protection
Ah.
in S10.
They got watered down, though.
They got watered down somewhat, but
Yeah.
originally the one that I read said that an employer cannot take an adverse action against a person just by virtue of his being the medical marijuana patient.
Right.
So, and there are others. There's some housing protection. And educational protection. So, yes, it is a very important bill that is tie-barred to the legalization bill, unfortunately, and is not getting, not going up for a floor vote. It seems to not be even very controversial, the expansion of the medical program. Even senators who are opposed to legalization support the expanding of the medical program. So, I certainly hope that if this bill the legalization bill S2703 does not pass by May, that they will cut that tie bar to the legalization bill and just let the medical expand on its own.
Have you heard anything to that effect? That they might do that?
Well, Governor Murphy did say that he was willing to divorce the expanded medical bill from the legalization bill if it did not pass in a timely manner. But he was criticized for doing that because he said that you're going to be losing some support for legalization if you do remove both the expanded medical bill and the expanded expungement bill from the legalization bill. So, I'm not sure how it stands. I certainly would. I certainly agree that we should not hold patients hostage beyond May. Certainly, if the legalization bill does not pass by then, I would wholeheartedly endorse legalization. Wholeheartedly pass the expanded medical bill and work to do that after May. Of course, that's a board decision, and the board of CMM&J would have to agree with that. But that would be my recommendation.
Yes, I think you would get support for that.
But I was going to say, if there's enough in the law, if it gets passed, we'll take a close look at the language and see if we can't encourage the Department of Health to do regulations that amplify patient protection and clarify it. Because that's what regulations are for. I mean, the legislature gives a broad brush, and then you need to, fine-tune it, as it were, in regulatory work.
Yeah,
and that's a force of law. I know Ken's doubtful about this.
Yeah, I am doubtful about that. We made our legislative and regulatory recommendations to the Department of Health, and they were very responsive to the ones that we've identified as purely regulatory issues that they can deal with. But apparently they're of the opinion that these workplace protections need to go through the legislature, Ed. So, they're waiting for this bill to pass. Because the workplace protections were kind of spelled out in the original legislature, which was that employers don't have to accommodate the use of medical marijuana in the workplace, and that was some kind of compromise that unfortunately.
But I think, but what we could do then is just the way. I tell you, the court in the case we were talking about, the appellate case, did talk about the legislature's findings about the beneficial effects of marijuana that many of you experts testified in front of the legislature. And I think we may need to do that with this idea of the ill effects from using it the night before and effects in the workplace. And that segues where the person giving us some information about one of the big fears is there's no way to test the way you can with a breathalyzer and alcohol.
Right, that's why the state police are opposing S2703. They're going, how will we measure impaired driving? Of course, my answer is if they're not impaired, don't worry about it.
Well, my answer is also, you go back to old policing.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Decades ago, you made your judgment. Now they have video cams.
Right.
So if somebody gets out of the car and he says, "What do you want, officer? Here's my license, registration. What can I do for you?" And the officer says, "Well, you touch the line. You say I sneezed, and it's clear this person is not under any influence."
Exactly.
Well, then you're not under the influence,
And if they are showing impairment, then it's up to a judge to decide whether the impairment was due to some illicit thing or maybe they have, a neural disease.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
But
plenty of things,
the body cameras on the police, seem to be indisputable evidence of what they're observing, and this is something that could be played in court, and then let the judge decide whether or not it's
If a person is
impairment.
impaired, then yes, arrest them. If they're not impaired, you don't care what they've ingested.
Right. Yeah. See, it goes back to that old. I think there's a prejudice that any use of marijuana is indicative of impairment, and that's certainly not the case.
What's interesting is they never talk about people who are literally high on sugar and have a collapse, or people who haven't eaten or haven't hydrated,
Or they're just angry at their wife.
Just there are many reasons to be impaired, but it's because this stigma of marijuana that's why I'm hoping at some point, maybe if we have expert testimony in front of the legislature, they'll expand their findings in future laws. And see, there's no need for this crazed tightness for one substance that they don't do for anything else.
Right. Right.
Well, look, it's Jim Miller's just arrived.
And we have WOFLO here. We have representatives from WOFLO who want to come up and tell us about their organization. We want to welcome some more people. Well, we're going to talk to WOFLO right now. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
So tell us about who you are and why you're here and your organization.
Cool. Yeah, we are local to Trenton, local to New Jersey, and we are advocates and educating in medical cannabis. So we think it's important because it kind of started with us being local to New Jersey and understanding that this city has a lot to offer. And then through experiences, cannabis became medicine to us in many different ways. So it was sort of a combination of the two. And we put it together, and now we are offering free events for people in New Jersey, especially Trenton greater area, the greater Trenton area. And yeah, that's where we're heading.
I have to say that your WOFLO website is very, very professional and very informative. You've got a lot of patient education there. You've got explanation of how people can get involved in the medical marijuana program. So I'm very impressed with your organization.
Awesome.
And also that you have these meetings and you attend the meetings of the Trenton cannabis community at the Trenton Library. What is that, the first Wednesday of every month?
First Tuesday of every month.
First Tuesday of every
Yes.
month from 6 to 8 p.m.?
Yes.
Yeah.
And your event is the second Wednesday.
The second Tuesday. Second Tuesday of every month.
Yes.
Yeah, we're at the Lawrence Township Library, the Coalition for Medical Marijuana. We've been there for over 10 years, and we're from 7 to 9 p.m.
So we have a couple things going on. In addition to Cannabis and Community, which is the first Tuesday of every month, we have on May 10th in the intersection of Parkside and Pennington, Dr. Shahid Mir. We're going to have free cannabis education classes where we help you. We tell you about the program. We tell you about the plant. We tell you about delivery methods, everything you need to know just to get a good comprehensive idea of like what is going on, right? Like what's important. If you don't know cannabis, come to this and you'll walk away with it with a new understanding.
And when is this again, Dr. Mir's?
Dr. Mir, that's May 10th at 6 p.m.
What kind of doctor is Dr. Mir?
Dr. Mir, he's a practicing MD.
Is he a family doctor, or do you know?
Family
or
doctor. I don't have it off the top of my head.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But he's right there. It's very convenient to Trenton. He has an office right on Parkside and Pennington, where Shirley Turner used to have her office. So anyway.
Yeah, and we have another big one. It's Cannabash with Fillmore Charles and Fully Baked Radio, and that's June 15th, which will be in Mill Hill Park. And that's our big one. That's all fun. It's just vendors and music
Yeah.
and food, and it's just a good time.
That is a good time.
Is that an all-day event? 6:15 all day.
Yeah, all
at
day.
Mill Hill. Yeah, we attended that last year, and it was very good.
Yeah. This will be the 5th annual, so we're
Great.
excited. We're excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your information, and
Yes.
we certainly wish you a lot of luck. And you're looking to establish a dispensary here in Trenton.
Yes, that's right. We want to establish a medicinal Trenton,
Mhm.
medicinal dispensary in Trenton, and we're really excited because the way that we're integrating ourselves into the community and catching the pulse of everything, we're trying to find and identify exactly what Trenton needs,
Mhm.
and we're addressing that. So please come to the events and you'll see more of what we're trying to do.
Great. And just tell us your name and how we can get into contact with you.
Excellent. My name is Matt King. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of WoFlow, and you can catch me at mking, King, at WOAH flow, FLOW.com.
Great.
What are you guys doing tonight?
Tonight,
Big party tonight, right? Somewhere.
that's right. I will be partying with the Easter Bunny with my family, but I will have some Wonka on the ride.
Right on.
How about you?
I'm going to the Secret Session Newark, but it's a secret, so I just.
There you go. Right on. I won't tell anybody.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. Take care, guys.
What's your Instagram address? How can I find you on Instagram? You're on Instagram, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Woah.flow. WOAH.flow.
Nice.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you, Ken.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Ken, I got a question for you. Ed, too, maybe. Some patients are saying that, including me, are saying that the legalization is going to create longer lines at the dispensaries for patients, and when they get to the end of that line, they're going to be out of the strain that they need, and that that's one of the reasons we need home grow. But that's what some of the patients are saying.
Well, that's a legitimate concern. You know, we're seeing some growing pains now in the alternative treatment centers. Some of the ATCs are running out of specific strains. Some of the ATCs have imposed limits already on how much you could buy. I know I went to the one in Montclair, and they said, geez, I wanted to buy some of their blueberry. It was very good blueberry. And they said, we don't have any blueberry today. And I said, well, what else do you have? And they said, well, here's what we have, but you can only buy a quarter of an ounce. I said, but I'm entitled to 2 ounces. They said, well, no, we have a limit of a quarter ounce per patient per day because, we're trying to meet the needs of all the patients.
Go to Woodbridge.
Oh, yeah,
Go
I
to
know.
Sea Caucus.
Yeah, some of the other ones are fine. But, this was a problem that we ran into. And it's not uncommon for patients to say, well, geez, I just can't get the strain that I need. So these are strong arguments for home cultivation for patients, and it's something that our organization supports. And we're not giving up on home cultivation. We don't think that there's enough support in the legislature right now for home cultivation. We don't think that the governor supports it. So, there's an educational process that has to take place before home cultivation will be accepted here in the state of New Jersey. So, we're doing what we can. And, the overall progress that the Murphy administration is making, we're very pleased with. He's greatly expanded the medical program. He practically doubled the medical program that the Christie administration had 8 years to work on, and in basically a year, he's doubled the program. So, there are some growing pains that are to be expected, and with the legalization, there may be some additional growing pains. However, there are additional dispensaries that the Department of Health has empowered these alternative treatment centers to open to meet the increasing demand. The Department of Health has given preliminary licenses to 6 more alternative treatment centers to open up. So, the Department of Health and the Murphy administration, I believe, is sensitive to those problems, and they're working to address those issues in a reasonable and responsible way.
I agree with that, Ken. I'd love to make a comment about Christie. He was completely opposed to the program. He threw every roadblock he could in front of it. I wrote a 42-page evisceration of his regs, his regs were a joke. They were just a joke. It's almost as if he threw it in the legislature's face that they passed this and he was going to let it happen. Well, let me just comment on what
They were
Ken's-
actually determined to be not consistent with the
Oh
law.
yeah, oh yeah. We testified in front of the legislature. I'd point out they had a constitutional duty to oppose these regulations because they undermine the legislative intent.
Right.
But let me just make I think home grow is kind of crucial to patients for all the reasons you said. And I always think, I can't remember now, there are either 565 municipalities in New Jersey or 566. Probably every one of them has a couple of pharmacies. So until we have 566 dispensaries, you're going to have a problem, number one. But number two, we had some people that were involved with the legalization at one of our meetings. I forget who, and there was a big debate about home grow, and they were vehemently opposed because, again, they want to make profits. But when I emphasize, we're just talking about patients now. That's not their market. They did not have opposition to that to patients. And I think if we can get them to join in with us and say, look, for patients, they have a specific need, and there's no way, a dozen or 2 dozen ATCs can keep up with the strains needed and the amounts. Yeah. So when you take amounts and strains and, you need home grow, and I hope the legalization people support that for patients.
Right. I think that that is the path to home cultivation. Hopefully once we pass legalization, then we can concentrate on expanding the medical program to include home cultivation for patients. That would be a here we have a very sympathetic group who have a documented need for specific strains, and also a group that have been impoverished by their illnesses for the most part. They can't afford the $400 an ounce that the dispensaries charge. There are some very, very compelling reasons to endorse home cultivation for patients, and we certainly hope that this is going to be the path. Once you have a pilot program going and you see that home cultivation is a responsible thing, it can be very responsibly done. You limit the number of plants. You possibly have a tag for each plant. They possibly pay a small tax for each plant that patients can grow. There are ways to regulate it, and I'm sure that since this is New Jersey, if we do have a home cultivation provision, it's going to be very strictly regulated, and I think that patients will be should be prepared for that and should be willing to accept that. We're a long way from marijuana as tomatoes, growing tomatoes,
Well, funny you said that, because Tony says every adult in California can grow 6 plants, and they still sell 1 billion in packaged herb, just like tomatoes.
Well, no, because every person in California can grow a lot more than 6 tomato plants. So it's not exactly like tomatoes.
That's true.
But that's a good point. That how many people are really going to do it? How many people are going to grow their marijuana? It's a sophisticated business.
You know what, Ken? I went to the dispensary down in South Jersey, and an old woman, about 75, 80 years old, was in front of me, putting out $500 on cash at the dispensary. $500. This is an old woman. She had cancer. Who knows? I don't know. She was suffering. And I'm thinking, this woman probably grows the best roses, the best tomatoes, the best stuff. If she had the ability to grow cannabis, she'd probably grow the best weed ever. These, it's like, come on.
Well, right. You can't tell, who has a particularly good green thumb by looking at them, but
all grandmas do, it seems.
Yeah. My dad was raised on a farm, so I have farming in my blood.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I pride myself on the tomatoes that I grow, and I grew corn in my backyard. I used to have before I moved to West Trenton and settled under a bunch of trees, when I had some full sun.
I actually had. Am I on, Lefty? Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I was actually growing out in Michigan a couple of years ago for a medical program out there, and look, there's very, very limited amount of people right now that can actually do it as a career, and the reason being is because you have to be at the location, whether it be your trimming, if it's a commercial operation or whatever it be. It's something that requires your attention 7 days a week, 364 days a year. I don't know. I love the trade, but you need a separate life just for that.
Yeah. That's a
You
good
really
point.
do.
And you need knowledge. You need special equipment.
Right.
To grow.
But the most
to grow
important
medical
thing is the time.
And the time.
The
yeah,
time
right.
is the most. I mean, it's really unbelievable.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I mean, we liken it really to the number of people who brew their own beer or make their own wine in New Jersey. I mean,
Sure.
yes, you're allowed to do that, but how many people actually do it? And,
Yeah.
not very many.
And then the people that do it, out of those people, how many people do they, that really know their craft as,
Right.
masters?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very small percentage.
So thank you, Slav. So tell us about yourself. What were you doing in Michigan? You're actually involved in a growing operation out there?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. For the medical program out there.
And Michigan was the 13th state to legalize medical
legalize.
marijuana. They were there just before New Jersey.
Correct.
did.
They were a little bit luckier than us. But they are. I mean, and I I don't mind that, honestly, from seeing the way the things how they have come along down there. As a matter of fact, it's so much more advanced than us here. There, you can go to any shopping plaza and they pretty much have a veg store where you can go and get your equipment, supplies. It's just like going to do your laundry. Yep. So I mean I applaud them for doing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I would love for us to be before not to be selfish or anything, but but unfortunately we're not there yet. So
Can I just want to make a comment on home grow. One of the oppositions is diversion, and I'm thinking, what patient gives away their life-saving medication unless it would be to another patient that they have sympathy for?
Yeah, I
that's
would.
common in the community. So this idea that, if you let a patient grow 6 plants, they're going to suddenly become a major drug dealer is ludicrous. So like with most marijuana stuff, the opposition has no realistic
Right.
points in their favor. It's just craziness.
in Michigan, we were contracted by the patients. So out there, you actually provide. You can get a caregiver to grow for you. So that's what we were doing. We were actually, growing.
Yeah, that was in the original New Jersey Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act bill.
Which is very smart.
It was the original concept for alternative treatment centers here in New Jersey were that like mom and pop co-ops, where the patients would own the 6 plants and they would just reimburse the co-op or the alternative treatment center for the cost of growing that medicine for themselves. But unfortunately, the bill got changed before it got passed into law, and we wound up with a much weaker bill that did not do as much for patients as the original bill would have done. So we have other board members here. We have Michael Brennan here.
Oh, this is great.
So we have Jim Miller
Hey,
here.
Awesome. Hey, Ken,
we have
check this out.
Amanda.
Check this out, Ken. I have the policy for Robert Wood Johnson Hospital.
Uh-huh.
When they took away Jeff Oaks' cannabis, they showed him this policy.
Uh-huh.
It says here, the purpose of this policy is to provide guidance for the staff on the appropriate use of medical marijuana, which is incongruent with federal and New Jersey laws. This policy applies to any patients who meet the New Jersey state criteria to obtain and use medicinal marijuana and are requesting its use at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. Policy. In 2010, New Jersey passed the CUMA Act, which permits patients with specific diagnosis to be eligible to obtain medicinal marijuana from a state-approved site known as an ATC. As of May 2015, there are 3. Well, now there's 6. Having obtained guidance from New Jersey Hospital Association Council, it seems that at this time, while it is legal to dispense and obtain medical marijuana in the circumstances defined by New Jersey state law, the use of marijuana for medical purposes or otherwise remains illegal under federal law. As a consequence of this conflict, we have been advised the following. Federal law expressly criminalizes marijuana use, possession, and distribution. We cannot really give any advice on how providers can directly help patients. So that's it. They said they cannot give advice. That's their whole...
Yeah, that's a real cop-out,
Yeah, it sure is.
The Supreme Court has ruled that the Controlled Substances Act was not an effort to control the establishment of the practice of medicine. It was, to control the illegal drugs in society. And it was not an attempt to define the practice of medicine in each state. That the states that have legalized marijuana for medicine have the right to do that. And it doesn't matter that that the federal law is against that. The states have these rights, have the right to remove the penalties for possession, use, and cultivation and distribution of marijuana under specific circumstances that they determine are appropriate. And this is what 33 states now have done, New Jersey included. So for the Robert Wood Johnson to say that it's against federal law, well, you're not telling us anything we don't know. The Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act says it's against federal law. That doesn't stop it from this whole program serving right now 42,000 patients in the state of New Jersey from working. So it's a big cop-out to go on to federal law. You know, that came up with the case of Felix Ka in Garden Grove, California. Mr. Ka was driving around with a small amount of marijuana in his car, and he had a traffic offense. And so the policeman wrote him a ticket for the traffic offense. He found his marijuana in the car, and he wrote him a ticket for having marijuana. So when he went to court, Mr. Ka showed the judge his medical marijuana card from California, and the judge said, "Well, okay, we're just going to dismiss this charge of marijuana." And so then Mr. Ka said, "Well, can I have my marijuana back then, Your Honor?" And the judge said, I'm not so sure about that. And the city of Garden Grove said, no, we would be violating federal law if we gave him his marijuana back. So we're not going to give him his marijuana back. I don't care what the judge says. And so then they took it to the appellate court, and the appellate court said, no, marijuana is considered medicine in the state of California. This man had his medicine. Not only should the charge be dismissed, but he should get his marijuana back. And the city of Garden Grove spent over $1 million fighting that, and they finally lost it. They appealed that all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case, and so they let stand the appellate court decision, which was a very good decision. City of Garden Grove, so that's why it determines that the practice of marijuana is considered legal medicine in California and in other states, really, that appellate court decision influences, and so that's the situation now. Institutions should not rely on the fact that marijuana is federally illegal to cop out, really, and to deny patients access to the medicine that they need when those patients are in their institution. We were just talking about the policy of Robert Wood Johnson, and so many hospitals. I mean, so many hospitals have policies that say, well, no, the only medicine you can use is the medicine that comes from the pharmacy, and our pharmacy. And since marijuana is a Schedule I drug, we can't have it in any pharmacy. So we do not endorse it, and we will. Some hospitals threaten to discharge the patient, inappropriately for.
Someone just asked me that the other day. They were told to leave the program. They didn't want to comply with their doctor's orders.
Yeah. So we have now Michael Brennan here as a board member from Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey, and Amanda, another board member from the Coalition for Medical Marijuana. Thank you so much for coming. Amanda, how are you guys?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Thanks, Ken. A little bit closer. I'm trying to protect the nuggets.
Oh, sorry.
It's
my bad.
Homeless nuggets sitting here on the table.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that won't last long.
Only with a bunch of supporters can you realize that, at least they're safe.
Yeah, we have, so we have established that the smoking is not permitted on the State House grounds, but patients can legally smoke across the street, and And so that's our guidelines for today.
Well, they do smoke cigarettes over there. I've seen the senator doing it.
Well, that doesn't mean it's right. Even senators
Okay.
can do things that are wrong.
No, I don't believe that.
It's who you know.
Yeah. So Amanda, tell us, what are your thoughts today about this?
Yeah, just today I just wanted to say thank you guys for adapting to the weather and the electrical issues and the technical difficulties for today. I wrote a speech, and I was still kind of in the mindset of doing a speech, but I kind of like that it's more of a conversation today. And I know there's a lot of people that are either home celebrating holidays, or a lot of patients can't come out in person, so they watch the podcast. It's been almost an online community for patients who are very isolated.
Yeah.
They can't come to these community events. They can't go out and celebrate 420 the way that we see folks out west. So what's nice about cannabis is that it does come with a bit of community. There's something communal about passing around a joint or enjoying cannabis together. When you're a medical marijuana patient, so much of your life is isolated. So having that online community, I think, is really important. Even if you're in your own house and Mike is in his house and Ken is in his house, we're all still kind of having a conversation together and sharing that knowledge and sharing the tribal knowledge of how to use cannabis effectively.
Right.
I learned a lot from Steve, who's here today, who's actually, I credit Steve with securing cannabis rights for Crohn's and colitis patients.
Steve Kuspelich, yes, very, very compelling testimony in the committees when these bills were being considered. I think he was the one, I think, that brought on Senator Burrini. He was one of the ones who convinced the first Republican to endorse medical marijuana, back between 2005 and 2010. Yeah, very, very powerful speaker, very powerful testimony.
Yeah, and I think it's people like Steve connecting to people who may be resistant to even the concept of medical marijuana, and to, touch that human empathy that we can have with each other and say, well, why are we letting people suffer? A lot of conditions have drugs, and you can go to a pharmacy, but some things like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, they're intractable, and the available medications don't work for you, and you're just sort of left to suffer. And in those cases, we have something where cannabis can help provide some relief, provide some sort of treatment, rather than needless suffering. And it's a natural substance. It is relatively safe when used appropriately. It has centuries of documented use, and I think it helps the body and the spirit. So it helps that mind-body connection, or for something like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, that mind-gut connection, because when you calm down your body, you can calm down your mind, and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's not only Crohn's, but PTSD and Tourette syndrome, a number of the conditions that really do not have a good pharmaceutical response can be helped by medical marijuana. And that's why it's so important to share this information among patients.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I learned from the patient community. When the medical marijuana program started, there were no ATCs. Luckily for me, when I joined the program, Garden State Dispensary had just opened near my house. And while they had flower, they didn't have any sort of edibles or tinctures or oils. So I went to learn from other patients how to make my own tinctures and oils and things that would work for my condition. So we have that sort of community knowledge that we share and help improve. So when you go to the dispensary and they might not know what works best for Crohn's, you could talk to another Crohn's patient and they can say, here's some tips so you don't destroy your $500 an ounce cannabis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Lee Cohen, he talks about if we have a patient in the program who his children use it, and you said one of them uses it for bipolar disorder. Now that's very interesting. You know, I'm a great believer that bipolar disorder can be helped by medical marijuana. I mean, it straightens out the highs and it brings up the lows. You know, so
I'm not scribed medical marijuana for bipolar, but I am diagnosed as being bipolar, and I find it to be helpful. And bipolar also includes.
No, it's not a qualifying condition at this time in New Jersey. We're trying to make it a qualifying condition. I think in the next go round, I think bipolar could certainly be included as one of the qualifying conditions.
I think a lot of people also don't understand that bipolar disorder also has other psychiatric kinds of conditions associated with it. It's just like you can have anxiety, huge anxiety issues, and a whole gambit of things. But what happens is that the main issue is the huge fluctuations. But I've been using cannabis for, I guess, medical cannabis for like 8 months already, and I have four diagnosable conditions that I got it for: PTSD, anxiety disorder, chronic pain, and migraines.
Wow, boy, you're a multi-qualifier, Lee.
And I'll tell you the weird thing about the migraines is that I've had migraines since 2002, and I've gone to the Jefferson Headache Center, which is probably one of the main places around this area that treats people that have really difficult migraine situations. Is that I have chronic intractable migraines, and what that means is that I have 8 migraines at least a month. And intractable means is that I tried at least 10 different medications, from Botox to whatever, and none of them worked. And since I've been on the cannabis, is that 0 migraines.
Wow. So it works as a preventative, and it's not only something that interrupts a migraine, but it actually works to prevent them for you?
It acts as a preventive, and I speak to people about this, and then I find out is that because I also know people that are in migraine groups, and I speak to people, and I found at least 4 other people that went into the program and are having exactly the same response that I had. Is that intractable migraines, which is a disabling form of migraines,
right? And
all of us is that the migraines just disappeared.
How about that?
What type of cannabis is helping you with?
Yeah, and how much do you use? Yeah.
I've tried like 3 or 4 different kinds. I've tried actually 7 or so, and AK-47 is a variety that I use. Kush 4 has been helpful to me. Canatonic, I think, has been helpful at times.
That's a high CBD.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're smoking it, vaping it?
I'm using it. I've tried 4 different ways. Is that I first started off with oil. Is that, and the oil seems to oily. The way I look at the oil is that it's sort of like when you eat it. When I used to eat it in the olden days, is that it takes an hour to come on, and then it stays there for like several hours, and then comes down. So that could be good or bad, as far as I'm concerned. So I switched over to using the vape about 2 months ago, and that's a shorter period of time. And I think, even though the dose isn't controllable, is that it's less. So it's 2-3 hours. So it's depending on what you're doing, and what the activity is that it's more of a regulated kind of thing, as compared to having it. So
you have to use this throughout the day?
I don't. Usually it's like once or twice a day, and and not every day. Is that, and because I don't seem to need it every day.
Yeah.
But it seems to once it's in my system, it's I think it's once it's in the system, I think it changes my brain, obviously, a little bit, which is which is a nice thing.
My friend Tony juices the leaves. And he's a big pothead. I mean, he smokes, he dabs. Juicing the leaves is what does it for him, for his migraines.
I found people. I'm at at the dispensary is that people talk. We say, well, what's working and what isn't working, even though you can't really talk about that. It's amazing that you can't talk in the dispensary.
Oil, or do you buy it from the dispensary?
I buy it from the dispensary. Is that my doctor suggested that what I do is that he gave me he suggests I buy a device that I can basically cook it, and then I can use it to sprinkle it on my food and things. But that was the same problem, is that I couldn't control the dosage.
What device?
Oh, what is it called?
Magical butter makes your recipes
Could have been
better.
a
No?
Levo. Could have been.
It's not a magical
Ardent,
butter?
Could have been Levo.
Okay.
It
Does-
also doesn't help is that my memory is going. Not
Okay.
because of the cannabis.
Does
because
it look like something this big
It's
or
this
something
big.
smaller?
It's
Oh.
this
It's a
big.
Levo.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
this big. It has a little. You just put it in there, you cook it for. You just put it in there, it disappears.
Make
It's done.
smaller amounts.
Nice.
It's done, and then it's and then you can use it. Yeah, I mean, people at the dispensary, a lot of them make an oil out of it or make a liquid, from what I understand. So, but it's expensive. I mean, that's
Yeah, it is expensive. So we're here with the Legalize It at the State House today on 4/20/19. I'm Ken Wolski with the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey. We're here with Lefty Grimes and his Sativa Cross podcast, Mike Brennan, and our guest today right now is Lee Cohen. And he's telling us about how marijuana helps. Marijuana, helps with his migraines, among other conditions. And, I remember Governor Christie and making a joke about how he wouldn't allow marijuana for headaches, and it just was so indicative to me of how uninformed he was and how what an ignorant thing to say that was. I mean, for a governor to not recognize how disabling a migraine headache could be. I mean, I've heard stories of people who couldn't leave their homes, who were absolutely disabled, could not work because of migraine.
Actually, I'm in migraine support groups that try to raise awareness of how disabling migraines are.
Yeah.
Most people really have no clue.
And it wasn't until Governor Murphy came on. It wasn't until Governor Murphy came on. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt
okay.
you. But
No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. But
It's one of those things that you get when you're in a serious pain, but you don't look hurt.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem
It's for people that don't understand.
the problem is that you can be disabled, and people have no clue that you're disabled. You can have chronic pain issues or lots of different kinds of medical issues.
Right. right.
Where it's not visible. And it's that makes it really difficult. Having been disabled, since 2004, that's a big issue in and of itself.
You've been disabled since 2004.
I became disabled in 2004. I aged out of SSDI because SSDI only goes to 65. But I have the chronic migraines is a disabling medical condition and nerve damage, and fibromyalgia. So the pain was unbelievable, and migraines are disabling basically.
Yes,
You hide in your room,
Right.
and that's all you do.
Right. I mean, because the very light is can just send you off. The sounds can send you off. So you
Light,
have to be
noise,
Smells.
anything, and pretty much the pain is unbelievable. So for having that kind of medical condition and neurologists, I spoke to my neurologist. I said, I'm going to try cannabis. Oh, I'm not so sure about that. It's like,
right.
It's like these
No.
neurologists just don't get it.
Take Neurontin. Take gabapentin. It's good for you, right?
Yeah.
That what they gave you?
So you try to get off of it.
Yeah.
One of the medications I took actually caused me to have what's called extrapyramidal syndrome, and
What's
and
that?
basically that's like having Parkinson's,
Oh.
drug-induced
Shaking.
Parkinson's.
You're lucky that it went away. I mean, some
I
EPS symptoms never go away. Once you have it, you live with them for the rest of your life.
Oh, man.
There's so many drugs out there. My problem is that most of the drugs I had horrible reactions to. And for instance, they put me on for pain. Is that I had fentanyl for a while, and they put me on like 80 milligrams of OxyContin, and it was like the more I took, the stupider I got.
Yeah.
And all the side effects were there, and I had to go out to the Mayo Clinic, for 3 weeks to get off of it.
About that.
And it was just like, otherwise I can't imagine where it'd be like in 2019 if I was still using opioids for my pain. So it's, it's.
So one of your sons, is he in the program or no?
I do have two sons, and one's living in New York, and the other one's in Pennsylvania, and both of them one was diagnosed as ADHD, and the other one is bipolar. And both of them, we tried all the regular medications that were out there for kids, and what they do is they medically, they use it, without a script, and it's the only drugs.
Yeah.
It's the only drugs that work.
How about that? Yeah, we'd like to get ADHD recognized as a qualifying condition. Also, there's so many mental and emotional issues that really can be benefited by medical marijuana. That PTSD. We were anxious to get that recognized as the first condition that was added to New Jersey's program, because it was partly because it was not only because 22 veterans a day were committing suicide, but also because in recognition that it was a mental and emotional condition that could be helped by marijuana.
The thing that people don't understand about PTSD is that PTSD incorporates most of the symptoms are basically depression and anxiety. So if you're treating PTSD, is that you have to be treating an anxiety and a depressive symptom amongst other things. I would have to say that ADHD also, there's a ton of anxiety involved in that as well.
Well, then anyone with anxiety qualifies, both primary anxiety, that is to say anxiety that is not connected to an underlying disease, and secondary anxiety that may be associated with autism or anything else, really qualifies as a qualifying condition here in New Jersey. So we have another guest here, another patient, I presume, and tell who are you?
DJ Stokes.
Uh-huh.
I'm from Hainesport, New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
I've been a patient for 3+ years.
Get up on that mic there, please.
Come a little
There you
closer.
go.
All right,
There
sorry.
you go. There you go. Perfect.
All right, so
DJ is your first name?
DJ.
Okay.
Well, I have a long first name,
Okay,
so
that's
I
okay.
prefer
That's
DJ.
Okay.
Nice.
My real first name's on the card.
Okay.
But yeah, I was on opiates for 25 years.
Oh, wow. You got me beat. I was only for 10 years.
I broke my neck.
You broke your neck.
Wait, I broke my C7 spinous process that holds all of your muscles and stuff in place. And I wore one of those nasty Philadelphia neck collars for 4 years. And what I have now is called a non-union.
Are they yours? Huh? They're yours?
Yes.
Oh. I'm sorry, DJ.
Okay. So I have a non-union fracture in my neck, and then it turns out, like 20 years after that, I fall down some stairs, and I break my back from T9 to T12, and of course, more opiates. I've maxed out on what they were giving me before. So
you had spinal fractures, but did not include the spinal cord.
No.
No. Okay. So otherwise, you would have been paralyzed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fused from T9 to T12, and I have cadaver bone in my spine.
Mm-hmm.
I have anxiety really bad. I almost died 3 times in my 25 years of trying to survive in pain. I smoked before it was legal, obviously, because I know a lot of people who felt that this was a better medication.
Me too.
Yeah. And
You're breaking the law.
You're not alone in that.
Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
yeah, exactly. And then my doctor said, you need to see a pain management specialist. And I went, but I like you. And he went, I don't want to write your scripts anymore. And I went, oh, fuck. Okay, sorry about the French. So I went to the pain management people, and they said, we want to take you off Dilaudid eventually, so we're going to try medical marijuana. And I went,
wow.
woohoo!
The doctor said that to you.
Yeah.
You didn't have to beg for it. Like,
No.
please get me off this. Oh, that's
No,
great.
No. But, I was already testing dirty, so.
Oh, so there you go.
then I had to quit for a couple of weeks. I quit for a year about, so I could pass, so that they would give it to me, and it worked out well. I love being on the program. I get it from all kinds of places.
Well, it's a nice little thing that you have around your neck. It says New Jersey Medical Marijuana Patient Program Patient.
Yes.
Where'd you get that?
I got it online from a man named Ken Scher.
Huh.
I noticed that he was.
Lanyard, I guess they call
Yes,
it. A
they're
lanyard,
called
yeah.
lanyards. He's
Hey,
got
where's
one.
yours, Ken? Come on, you gotta get with the program here.
I love it.
Everybody's got one but me. What is this?
I love this thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's my wallet.
It
is.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'll be there soon. It's hard to be that way with.
Oh, wow.
Well,
At least it's not full of pills anymore.
no, I do still have some pills because I can't have fibromyalgia, so I can't.
Yeah.
I haven't found any medication herb-wise that helps with that, so I'm on Lyrica, unfortunately.
Oh, Lyrica. Oh.
But I can't. I'm allergic to gabapentin.
Oh, God. All that stuff's horrible.
I agree, but I need to be able to walk around.
I know, it helped. It did help for a while for me.
So if this helps me for a little bit, my husband's okay with it. Me spending our money. I'm not working. I haven't worked since 2007.
Yeah.
I get sick easily. So also part of my illness problem. And she's right, which the woman before me said. People assume from your general look that you're not sick. No matter what.
Yeah.
And I pull up in a handicap spot, and I end up showing more old people my freaking back surgery scar than I really want to.
How about that?
Because they won't leave me alone.
Well, and it's typically the people who complain about it say they stand outside of a dispensary in California and they watch these kids come and go in the dispensary and they say, they don't look sick to me. Obviously, they're just using it for recreational purposes. I wonder how many of those same people stand in front of pharmacies and, look at the people who come out and make judgments about the people who come out of pharmacies and say, you don't look sick to me. Put that medicine back.
So I've been to 2 of the 6 dispensaries, although I'm working my way north. That's my goal eventually, is to make it to all of them. Even if I don't buy from every single one because I don't have unlimited funds, but I got tired of waiting for it to become legal. I was like one of those people that was like, everybody's fighting but nobody's winning. I think it's time I get involved and help out.
Nice.
Because
well, thank you.
Thank you.
well, I know people other than myself who have used, and honestly, we really should grow. We're the Jersey Garden State.
Yeah, we're supposed to be Garden State here.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, that's what we called it when they took the home cultivation provision out of the original Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act. They made us the no garden state.
Yeah. It's one that's getting me very pissed off at this point, the lack of home cultivation. The more I find out about the objections to it. For instance, Guattari keeps saying, he went to Colorado and they warned him about diversion might be occurring. At the time, they were allowing 199 plants per person. So I've tried communicating with him multiple times saying, we're talking about 6 plants, a whole different animal, and he won't respond. He's just reiterated the Colorado thing, knowing that that's not what applies. And then I heard another senator say, it takes 20 gallons a week to grow a plant. If we let them grow 6 plants, that's 120 gallons of water, floods. And I said, where are you getting this information from? He said, we talked to some of the growers at the dispensaries. And I said, okay. And then I found out that one of the dispensaries' partner, if you will, has been lobbying in New York State, at least, against home cultivation. Why are they doing that? Sounds like money to me. I've actually been trying to communicate with them, ask if they're doing this in New Jersey, and they won't respond. So all I can assume is certain dispensaries in New Jersey are lobbying against home cultivation. And I'm getting pissed off about this. This is ridiculous. states that have home cultivations, the dispensaries are doing just fine. They're making money hand over fist. The states are making money hand over fist. They're being so greedy, they don't want to lose a small amount. I mean, if they only allowed patients to grow, let's say, probably only a third or a quarter of the patients would be able to grow. We're talking about nothing in terms of money, especially if they have recreational, which is going to dominate. Meanwhile, we have these bills, which are wonderful bills coming down. When they're implemented, and suddenly you have recreational patients using the same cannabis, apparently, on the fast tracking, there's going to be shortages. There's going to be lack of the medical strains. We have these problems right now.
We already have that problem.
And we can't afford it anyway.
We already have that
I
problem.
know we do. Yes.
I
And it's
mean,
going to get much worse, right?
Yeah, it's going to get worse.
I literally cannot find medicine that works for me on a regular basis.
Right. You find a strain that works for you, the next time you come, what happens?
It's gone.
Yes, exactly.
So you have to find another strain that might work for you
Yeah.
and hope.
And costs a lot of money to
And-
try it.
Yeah, exactly. I wish we had the Maryland deal where you could buy a gram of each one to try.
Yes.
And then
A sampler packet.
yeah, that would be great.
That
the
would
sampler
help.
pack would help a lot.
But still, with the cost and all, even if the price comes down with recreational, I hope it does. I think it will in the long run.
Yeah.
Even if it comes down to the rest of the country, right now, so a patient might spend $10,000 a year. Somebody on disability income, half the patients are on disability. So say the price comes down to national average, it's still going to be $6,000 or $7,000 a year. That's still not affordable. Every state that implemented recreational had home grow, and that's what buffered the system when they suddenly, all the recreational patients were buying. And we've told that to legislators over and over again. They just say, oh, we're not ready for it now. But they were ready for it when they passed CUMA 9 years ago. The Senate passed the original CUMA, which had home cultivation. Many of those senators are still in office. So obviously they were ready for it 9 years ago. Why aren't they ready for it now? And I think it's dollar signs. I really do.
Oh, everything's dollar signs. This
I
is
think
New
when
Jersey.
I think when they originally did CUMA, they weren't really thinking of money. I really think they're thinking of compassion. But now with the recreational, it's money, and that's great. State needs the money. I hope
we
they
need
get it.
the money.
But don't do it at the expense of patients.
We need our stuff. They need to make sure they have what they need for us, because without that, we're.
I'm totally in favor of these bills, but I also want home cultivation. And I'm tired of the senators saying, we'll talk about it later after we get this done. That's what they said after it was removed when they passed the original law. Oh, well, we'll talk about it later once we get the system established. Well, that was 9 years ago, and they're still saying the same thing. And I'm just getting a little pissed off, especially when I see money is the big issue. I think it's the big issue behind a lot of this reaction.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Well, for 8 years, you ran into the Christie administration right after we passed the Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act. So, it was bittersweet when that passed and home cultivation was taken out of it basically at the last minute in June of 2009. The bill finally passed into law in January of 2010, and Governor Christie came on board 2 days later, and it started 8 years of repression of the medical marijuana
Absolutely,
program.
and that's a lot of it. But still, they had 8 years to think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's
think
the
they-
path to progress.
Grab a
If you
mic.
think
There you
about
go.
this right now. Path to progress that they have pitching around. So Steve Sweeney's going around the whole state of New Jersey trying to pitch a bill to everyone. And this is the big thing. The budget, if we wind up having a stock market the way that it is right now, they're going to be bankrupt by 2023 the way that things are going. So what they're looking to do is cutting costs in New Jersey for long term for the pension. Well, this is a big thing. The state needs money. The biggest way that they want to try getting money is as much tax revenue as possible. And if we keep on going the way that we're going right now, we're going to be bankrupt. But even if we look at the stock market going down, the pension could be dissolved earlier. So they're doing any which way to try to hold anyone hostage. Me as a medical patient, anyone that's a medical patient is the one that's suffering because they're trying to figure out how to get a tax for everyone. And it's not a good situation what we're going through. But at the end of the day, I can't find a strain where I can go at a dispensary. I can't get the access that I need for a daily basis. And even if I could, It's exorbitantly expensive. You go to Colorado, all right, the same amount of the allotment per year is about $2,500 on rec.
How much does an ounce cost in Colorado?
It's about $100 to $110 for some top quality bud. And that's with tax.
So you think that if the
Yeah.
the New Jersey prices came down to Colorado levels, which it might after recreational goes in, it might come down to $100 an ounce, thereabouts?
In theory.
Without home grow, no. Without home grow, no. It never would.
Why is that?
Because it's gouging the prices.
Well,
They have the market.
Yes, yes. It's market fixing, essentially. And also, if we don't have home grow, this is another big problem that we're having too. We have a brain drain right now within New Jersey, and no one realizes it. It's genetics. And we need people to learn on how to grow cannabis. If there was home grow, even if we were allowed 6 plants, if we allowed home cultivation for a caregiver to have 6 patients with 36 plants at maximum, we can create a market of micro just through that. It's a no-brainer if we went to have home grow on medical right away, right now, because then we could actually, even in the major grow facilities, we would have people immediately being able to get jobs. And also, it could lead into an expungement for cultivation.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We're missing the ball.
Bill doesn't do expungement for cultivation, just for possession, Ken, or is it?
yeah, it's
I see
possession.
what you're saying.
Possession up to 5 pounds.
Ooh,
but,
that's not bad.
Right. But that in itself is controversial, and it may not have the legislative support. We're really dealing with legislators, who don't even support a more conservative bill.
Right.
Unfortunately. So
Yes.
that's the reality of the political
Right, I
situation.
mean, there is the
here in New
reality that
Jersey,
has to be dealt with, I realize.
And our organization certainly supports home cultivation. We think that we supported the original concept of alternative treatment centers, which were like mom and pop co-ops for patients that would grow 6 plants each per patient. But I think that we're at the point where we just have to recognize that we're in a process that is going to require education for our legislators and for our governor. Even our governor really said he does not support home cultivation at this point. So we're a ways away from it. We're not going to give up on it, but
It is an educational effort, and it's hard to get access to the governor and some of the senators to have this discussion with them.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. You have like people, and I look at it. You have people like Sweeney out there. When we were out there rallying, he was in the office. You had 30 to 50 people at one point out there, and
in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were out there, and he sends a junior staffer. It does not look good.
No, he called the cops.
Yeah, that too.
First, he called.
Yeah.
the cops.
Well, we don't know Sweeney was there, but his car was there.
His car was there.
Typically, I mean, you do meet with staffers rather than the actual
That is true.
legislator himself, even if you have an appointment. I question how worthwhile it is to be attacking Senator Sweeney and Senator Scutari on these. These are some of our greatest champions in the legislature, and for marijuana reform. And to me, I would be attacking Senator Rice, who calls marijuana a gateway drug.
And we do.
And Senator Doherty,
doubt.
who
Sex
said,
marijuana.
He's
Senator
dug out the whole
Doherty,
reefer madness thing.
These are the guys who really need to be demonstrated in front of.
Well, we agree. What it is, those patients, we get frustrated. We know these are the people who can push legislation, marijuana legislation. It's their interest, so we go after them. It is unfair, but it's the reality. You go after the person you think can do the most good.
But this is also, if you look at the history of politics of what things have gone on, we could have had medical marijuana under Corzine, but it was held off.
Well, we did. I mean, we did get it. We did. We got the bill signed under Governor Corzine, and I spoke with Governor Corzine during the course of his 4 years, and I asked him if he wouldn't use the bully pulpit of his governorship to encourage a sooner passage of the Medical Marijuana Act that was in the legislature for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010. And he said no. He said he supports medical marijuana. If we get a bill to his desk, he'll sign it. But he was a money guy. He was more involved with budget issues and making money for the state of New Jersey, and so that was his concern.
It's too bad. If it had been passed a year earlier, a year before he left office, we'd have a totally different system now.
But if it was passed, if we waited 2 more days to pass that, you would have had Governor Christie in office,
and it wouldn't have been signed.
And you would not have had medical marijuana for 8 years in New Jersey. And
I agree.
And we would not be on the verge of legalizing marijuana here in New Jersey. We would not have a medical marijuana program that currently has 42,000 patients in it and is now looking to expand it considerably.
Right. You're looking at the big picture, and once Murphy took office, immediately the program was expanded to new conditions, important ones, the opiate addiction was added to this, PTSD, a few others.
PTSD was added during the Christie administration.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So something happened under Christie.
Oh, yeah. Well, he added anxiety. He added chronic pain.
Yeah.
He added Tourette syndrome. Jay, come on, grab a microphone.
Hi, guys. I'm writing for Leafly today, so I'm actually on the clock. I'm working, but I'm listening. But Chris Christie was awful, wasn't he?
Yeah. We're just talking about how he really sat on the medical program, and
I know he sat on it and suffocated it. Now, you guys obviously have fat shame on the brain because I did not mean it like that at all. I know. People are so mean and cruel.
No, the regulations that came from his Department of Health were determined by the entire legislature to be inconsistent with the law.
The legislative intent. So this, Leafly was like, hey, Jay, go to a dispensary and write about it. Tell us how high the prices are. And I'm like, okay, I love to do that. So I am not in status. I ran out on the 18th, and I mean I should have probably checked, but the one I can't go to dispensary today. I'm not allowed. They wouldn't let me in. So that was it's not a big deal.
You may not find anything anyway.
They suck. I keep my money. I've got 15 backup plans. It was a really great angle as a writer, but as a human being, in that moment, it just felt really kind of humiliating, and I can turn my heel and take my platinum card and go to whatever. I'm going to be fine.
Well,
but the idea that if I was languishing all weekend in any kind of pain, I just wanted to go to the dispensary to write about it. I just wanted some pot because I wanted to get high. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. But if I was actually sick, I'd have been fucked.
Jay, tell us about you're very aware of the legislators and the minds of the legislators, I think, more than probably anybody else.
Wow.
Why is that, Jay?
Anyone here?
All those tricks I turned in the 90s.
Nice.
I'm just kidding. No, I know. That's why I'm such a good lobbyist now. Well, yeah. I mean, come on. Republicans found me even more exotic.
Don't you know that?
All right.
You're a young Republican.
I smell some pot. So what was your question,
Well,
Kevin?
the question was that senators voted to support home cultivation in 2009 when Kuma was working its way. How come there's so much resistance to even discussing home cultivation now? I mean, what is it? Are we just in a situation where there's several years of educational process that needs to be undertaken before these legislators will come to realize, that home cultivation is not a threat to them, that it is a benefit, and it's not going to seriously increase the taxes. It's not going, or decrease the taxes. It's going to be a net benefit rather than a net liability.
Well, I think so far the opposition has kind of out-hustled us in the ground game a little bit, so maybe we do have some work and some improvements that we need to make to kind of get that message out, because it's pretty straightforward. Home grow addresses all of the problems in New Jersey's medical marijuana program, period. That should be straightforward. and you got the track record of these legislators having voted on it before. I don't think they knew they voted on, like, that provision might not have been on their mind when they voted yes, and they probably don't even realize they voted for home grow at some point. After this legislation passes, which we all agree this legislation doesn't go far enough, so we're going to have some work to do immediately.
Right.
And then home grow should be the first thing. It was funny, I went and interviewed the Attorney General a few months ago after they had decided to stop prosecuting certain kinds of pot crimes or whatever. And I asked him, and I was just like, so what does that mean for, like, pot crimes if I were to grow it? Does that count for that? And he's like, God, that's such an interesting question. I don't have an answer for that. And it's been like 4 months, so I think I need to revisit him, because if we have a certain, like, latitude, like, there's a lot of, because it's a really big crime to grow your own pot here. It's not just a little thing, right?
It's a death sentence. For a cancer patient, it's a death sentence.
Right.
20
like,
years. 20 years.
Yeah,
in
that
prison,
20 years is like, oh my God, I would be 67 when I got out of prison. Christ.
You might as well murder somebody.
I know. I might as well murder. Oh,
You probably have
again?
a list.
Well,
it's taken me so long to overcome my last one.
Our path to home cultivation is to pass S2703, legalize it, and then with that the expanded medical bill, and then to work to include home cultivation provision for patients.
Incremental, exactly.
Yeah.
That's got to be our path, and it sucks because it should be so obvious. Like, what they don't realize is that if we're doing home grow, we're still going to be paying sales tax on all the gear we need, on all of the lights, and just there's a lot of, like, knock-on effect when people are gardening. Like, think about how much gardeners spend on spades and whatever else, hoses, and, like, you know, lawn care people. Just, like, it's a hobby. And even though we're not going to be, like, making money off of, you know, because the state sees this as, like, us infringing on their coin and their power and their liberty. So they're wrong. We need to do a better job of explaining it.
And they shouldn't be trying to make money off of sick people. Just saying.
I know. They like making money off of sick people. Apparently, sick people blood money is the most satisfying if you have no ethics and no morals, like they don't.
They can't move fast, so they're easy to get, you know.
That was a heavy sigh. Wouldn't it have been cool if this would have been the 420 where, like, this could have been such a different 420?
How
This
so?
could have been, like he could have legalized it, and we could have been fighting for, I don't know.
That's right.
What are we going to do when this is over, you guys?
I know.
Oh, my God.
Somebody said this may be the last 420 where marijuana is not legal in New Jersey.
Yes.
So.
This is the second 420 during the Frill Murphy administration.
Yeah.
But I do think it's probably the last one. I think we will pass the bill.
At first, I thought Steve Sweeney was holding the medical bill because he was being all strategic and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he's just doing it to make Phil Murphy look bad. Like, they just hate each other that much, and we're just pawns.
Yeah.
And so after we pass this, if it passes, when it passes, we get to work on home grow incremental, get patients growing their own, get the Attorney General and other law enforcement, like, bought in on why this should not be a crime, at least. Maybe we can decriminalize home grow. I don't know. There's just making small steps in that direction.
Somebody said that a lot of the legislators in southern New Jersey, the Democrats, were not supporting 2703. So, you know, I mean, you would think that Sweeney would be able to bring them on board if he wanted to.
Sweeney can bring them on board if he wants to build a pipeline or if he wants to give one of his homies, like, a bloated pension they didn't deserve. He has no problem. They're, like, goose-stepping.
If you look on the bill, Path to Progress, on the page 9, that's the last page you need to read to know what they're up to. It's funneling money through S-chapter corporations, LLCs, to get it into a new pension fund. That's how money gets missing.
Yeah, well, I don't think Steve Sweeney has ever knocked his people in line when it was anything good for New Jersey voters or taxpayers. He only cracks the whip when something bad is about to happen.
Well, why are Republicans so opposed to it? I mean, you know,
that's a good question.
Because they're opposed to
everything.
Only one Republican in the entire legislature is willing to endorse 2703.
I think we'll get some Republican votes in the end. We just need to hump their leg a little bit more strategically.
But what is it?
Ramp
about,
is talking to all of them.
What is it about the ideology that makes it marijuana wrong?
No, it must be because it's a Democrat initiative.
What?
You know, that.
Could be. Yeah.
And also, they don't gain by helping the governor. Like,
True.
The Republicans in New Jersey are so fucking hapless
Good point.
after Chris Christie. They don't know. And there are some ones that are a little bit more gettable. Like, even when at least Dawn Adiago told us what her hang-up was, and we know that 5-pound threshold for like, that is something that we're not, like, explaining very well.
Right.
Like, that's not, like, that wasn't...
Class 2, Class 3.
Exactly. That's part of the that's not part of the... Anyway, what he just said.
The criminal law.
It's not really, even if it's up to 5 pounds, it's whatever was settled at that case.
Exactly.
So when you really look at it, it's not that much. If you want to think about it more,
Good point.
if we had home cultivation in itself, that would create cultivation expungements. That's big. It's big to have home cultivation, and then we would have expungements for that. Other states would be in line with that.
What is it? It's a Class 3 penalty if it's between 50 grams and 5 pounds. So, that's just the criminal law that you're dealing with.
Exactly.
It's
not about the actual weight.
That has nothing to do with the 5 pounds that we're dealing with. And that's all you hear every single time people throw that out is, these are drug dealers. We can't expunge them. No. They're dealing with 5 pounds. I don't know. I know people that try to cook down their tinctures, and that's not really that much. But to get to the other side of it, most of the cases we're talking about are much smaller amounts.
Oh, I know. And you even look at, there's people that have had Class 1s. Okay?
What's up, my man?
We're talking about higher crimes that had a lot less. And they're not going to get expunged on it. So if you're looking at it, even within the theory of law, yeah, they're talking about up to 5 pounds. But why don't we go in a different direction? Even though we're creating a new law, wouldn't it be better to just erase the whole old one and start people from scratch?
I mean, the 2C, the criminal law.
Hold on. It's just, I think they're going for the simplest way to do it. Just go right into that classification and do it. You can see that's exactly where they're at with the one hearing. It's just like the 5 pounds wasn't the issue. The issue was the law and how it was written.
Exactly.
But what Jay brought up is we're doing a lousy job explaining that, letting people know. Yeah, there's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And people just are getting hooked on this 5 pound beat the dead horse.
But that's the problem. If the senators were to open up doors and you have more of them talking to the people rather than talking to bigger businesses, then that would create a open philosophy where they would know what's going on, because the people that would be coming to their front doors are the people that had those classifications, that have been separated from their families. And that's a bigger issue that we need to look at. We need to look at the people that have been victims of the government under their classifications and have to look into how can we get them back home? How can we get them back to their families, to their loved ones, and get them on the right path in the right direction? And that's where we're missing out on this bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I'm looking around, where's our normal representation?
Who?
Yeah. Thank you. Crickets. That's South Jersey normal. I don't know, it's just New Jersey. As I said earlier, in New Jersey, you want to get the old one erased and a new one started?
Well, there's so much of the increasing penalties for marijuana offenses have really been a function of the inability of the government to stop the marijuana. So they just said, well, if we keep increasing the penalties, you lose your driver's license, even if the marijuana's got nothing to do with driving a car. You can lose for possession. You can lose your driver's license for 6 months. It's just another one of the increased penalties. People who grow less than 2 dozen plants can face 20 to 30 years in prison. We have 2 people, John Pedito and Wilson. They face up to 30 years in prison just for growing 2 dozen plants. It's ridiculous, the draconian kind of penalties. And it really comes from the frustration, I think, of the legislators in not being able to stop marijuana use. It's something that Americans want to do. 111 million Americans have used marijuana. It's a violation of federal law every time they do that. and yet
More
the laws
conversations with
the laws are
prosecutors.
ineffective. The laws are harmful, and they're unnecessary as it comes to marijuana.
The Declaration of Independence was made on marijuana.
A hemp paper.
It was
on hemp. Now,
No, they're on marijuana too. Yeah,
we're
they're
going
high on
back
cannabis.
But
the penalties are having no effect on the use. People
Right,
are
right.
still using it. It's still here.
It's not
the penalties
going away.
keep going up, and it's still here.
Right.
That was some of the frustration you heard from the chairperson the other week in chambers. It's like, talk to your prosecutors. They're still prosecuting the same people because it's still coming in.
It's a system. It's in and out. And the biggest problem that we have is a weight on our system. If we look at the jail system of how many people are jailed nationwide, okay, and the amount that's probably on cannabis is astronomical.
Did you see the study that in Colorado, after they legalized marijuana, the clearance rate on murders and other violent crimes increased? Why? Because the police were freed up to do that.
Yeah, they're wasting so much problem. They're criminalizing people who do not deserve to be criminals for non-violent, non-criminal offenses. And it's just a horrible situation that's going on. It has a devastating effect on our communities.
As taxpayers,
Right,
we're wasting
right.
so much of our income towards taxing of jailing people that just shouldn't be in jail.
Right.
And this is like a bad use of our money. It's like having an IT department coming and keep on fixing the same thing,
But it's not
and they
just
can't get it
money.
wrong.
It destroys communities.
Oh, yeah.
It causes distrust of the police. I mean, the social effects are probably worse than the monetary
Right,
effects.
absolutely.
I mean, it's crazy. We should have, everybody realizes we need to get away from this, but people are being very conservative in the movement away from it.
When one person goes to jail,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect one person. It affects the whole family,
Family,
yeah.
monetarily,
Right.
emotionally,
It decreases
and
the
physically.
socioeconomic
Yes,
status of
yes.
the entire family.
Yeah.
And if you arrest enough people from the same community, it decreases the socioeconomic status of the entire community. And it affects the employment opportunities that are available to members of the community, and just educational and family life and housing. Just it's horrible, the effect that it has, and I've seen it. I mean, I was born here in Trenton, and I live in Trenton now, and Trenton is a much worse city than it was when I was young growing up. The violence associated with the drug trade is terrible. I mean, I hear gunshots outside my windows at night, and the educational system is much worse. The poverty level is 28% in Trenton. I mean, that's twice the national poverty rate right here in Trenton, and so much of it has to do with the war on drugs.
Right, but the politicians, like in Trenton, are the ones who are most against the recreational law because they see the harm of drugs in general, and they
blame the drugs,
blame it on
right,
marijuana and so
right.
on.
But
we see this with Rice in his district, same
Right.
thing. Yeah.
But meanwhile, we look at alcohol. There's studies now showing with alcohol that leads into hardcore drugs, and we're talking about heroin. We're talking about cocaine. We're talking about the heavier types of drugs.
Well, we've known for decades that alcohol is our worst drug problem. Period.
And
Yeah.
it's unreal. If you look at how bad that this is, alcohol usage goes to other substances, and we need to associate more with cannabis as a cure rather than a problem.
Sure.
And if we do that,
Right.
it would be a better.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole nation is ready to get rid of the marijuana drug laws. It's just how long is it going to take?
It takes to pack all the bills together.
Yeah.
Like if you look right now, in the past few weeks, there was about 3 bills that
Yeah.
are being sent through Congress, and there's definitely work going on. I know that in the middle of May, there's going to be lobby days for legalization and a path to legalization. I know it's mainly going to be geared towards medical, but
Right.
when you look at it, that's your path to legalization of some
Sure.
sort. At least there's some sort
It's
of
a
federal
crack in the
movement.
dam.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey, we're speaking with Douglas Cooper from Mount Laurel. Thank you so much for your insights into this, Douglas. Thank you for coming to our little podcast here on 420 to talk about marijuana reform.
Anytime.
And so, who else do we have here?
Rocco, have a seat.
I like your bag from New Jersey United for Marijuana Reform. You know, we're supporters of New Jersey United for Marijuana Reform, and so who are you and why are you here?
Get up on that mic like prison.
Just,
Get up on that
this.
mic. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just supporting all the patients out here.
Oh,
You've been a
great.
big supporter over the years, and I appreciate all your help over this time.
And what's your name?
Rocco Zara.
Rocco. Hi, Ken Wolski from the Coalition for Medical Marijuana.
Where are you from?
Originally from Freehold. Now I'm down by Atlantic City.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Jersey boy all the way.
Nice.
And KYND, that's a cannabis company? Are
That's
you
a dispensary in Vegas.
in Vegas? So you're out there, you travel around the country going to dispensaries?
Yeah, my favorite's Colorado.
Yeah.
I've never been to California, but I'd like to get there soon.
Uh-huh.
How was the Vegas dispensary? I don't know many people have been to them.
Pretty nice. Been almost like an iPhone store. You know,
I hear they're expensive though in Vegas. Yeah.
I mean, we do get a slight discount.
Uh-huh.
They do accept our cards in Vegas.
They accept our cards,
they do.
okay, but they also have legal out there, so you can also go to a legal dispensary. You don't have to be a patient, right? To
Right,
get it in
right.
Vegas.
But it helps because, like I said, you get a discount.
You get a discount.
By the way, I'm so sad Atlantic City wasn't the first to do that. I was so hoping they would. I was thinking gambling, recreational marijuana, shows, restaurants, a perfect combo. New Jersey really could have used that. And we need past this as soon as possible so we beat the neighboring states on recreational.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, Peter.
Yeah. Especially if they're into it for the money. The state that first does it establishes sort of the
Right.
reputation.
Right.
So, yeah, hurry up.
But I've been smoking for over 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, it's been medicine before I was even a patient.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
So just I feel like everyone is a patient. It costs us money to be a legal patient.
Right. I think
You know
all
what I mean?
use is medical.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's all used as medical. It's just that we're doing it more as to not get arrested. You got to be a patient and pay to be legal. And you know, it's kind of not right, but you know, it's the price you got to pay. But
Get out of jail free card.
yeah. I mean,
sometimes.
Most times.
it helps.
Yeah.
You know
Except
what I
for
mean?
Lefty,
It
I don't know.
definitely
Lefty, you still get arrested?
No, I haven't gotten arrested in a
I'm
while.
sorry.
Quite a bit.
helps. I've been with Lefty to quite a few police stations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been
But
to some of those
but you
iron
were
stores.
you were arrested in front of Cory Booker, right? When he introduced his marijuana.
I don't even want to go talk about this, Ken. Ken, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I'm trying to forget that part of my life. That was a horrible incident, man. Let's not even go there.
Okay.
And you're arrested for littering one time.
I got assaulted with the wheelchair war. It's been crazy.
Oh yes, that was the Asian lady that beat you up.
I think she was Egyptian, but they're tough, man. They're
Tough.
They don't.
They gotta be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we got a quarter pound of weed back for a patient in Keyport. That was good.
Oh, that's great.
That was good last
Great.
year.
You got it back from the police?
Yeah, it wasn't even legal weed. That's the funny part. How about that?
Now it's wrong.
Just kidding. Just kidding. It was all legal. He brought a bag of jars with him to the police station. You saw that, right? He had a huge bag of jars from all the years he bought cannabis. And he brought this with him to the police station. And he says, "Where's my cannabis?" And they're like, "No." And he's like, "Yeah." And we went to the council. You know how we do. We go to the council. We go to the cops. Go to the council. And they didn't like all the pressure. So without a lawyer, we got back a quarter pound of weed for David. We got back Michelle's weed from Jersey City Medical Center and from Bayonne. So we got to fight. You got to fight to get your stuff back.
Wait, what about helping Anthony in Haddonfield and that other town? I was at both of those.
Yeah.
What happened
I
in
mean, hey,
Haddonfield?
That's right. We've
I
been
live
busy.
right next to
made
Haddonfield.
his case was dismissed. I mean,
What,
there was a
can
lot
you
of
tell us about the case? I don't know it. The Haddonfield one.
I don't know much.
He was driving while black in Haddon Heights.
Yes. Oh, Haddon Heights, yes.
Lefty will get honest.
Yeah. That's what he was. Yeah, that's what he got pulled over for. Driving while black, and it was Anthony. You know, our friend Anthony, and he had some weed that wasn't in the package correctly.
Right.
But he had all his stuff. But they put him through the system. You know what bothers me is when they put these patients through the system like that. Imagine someone like Cheryl Miller going through the system.
Yeah.
And Jim having to push her through the court system every day in a gurney. Can you imagine that?
Yep.
That's what's going to happen.
Anthony was handcuffed to a pole.
Like an animal for 3 hours, chained to a wall, like an animal.
For cannabis.
For cannabis that he's legally allowed to have.
Even if it was illegal, for cannabis.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised he wasn't tackled.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Hey, what about Mike? Wasn't he tackled on his bike in Seaside Heights or
was
something?
riding his bike and was tackled by the police.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, Seaside Heights. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Scott up in Sparta.
Yeah. So.
Was stabbed.
So we still have a lot of work to do, and I think this is one of the reasons that S2703 is going to help a lot of patients too. Once it's legal, it's not going to be a cause
the end
for
of this.
arrest.
Yes.
You're not going to be. It's not going to be a cause to search your car. It's not going to be a cause to pull you over. It's not going to be a cause to tackle you while you're riding a bicycle.
My personal thing on this bill and all that stuff. There's not much I can do about it, so. I guess we just can take what we can get right now.
Well, you can offer support.
I do. I'll offer support.
And call your senators and assemblymen and say vote for it.
It's kind of a step in the right direction. You know what I mean?
Oh,
you got to start somewhere.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. Yeah.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, and we need the business here in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
We need this industry to start.
It will basically
6
take the
dispensaries
police.
Isn't enough.
But if this bill passes, it takes the police out of marijuana. Is what it does basically.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I'm really serious. To me, it's very embarrassing when I call a dispensary to see what they have.
Yes.
And 90% of what they have in stock is nothing but shake.
Yeah.
We have Tangy in shake. We have this in shake. We have that in shake. We have this one in shake. We have this one in bud and shake. I mean, 2 strands out of
No, it's been a real
20.
problem.
I mean, come on. Who?
That works though. You can call the
And I
dispensary.
saw
Yes.
You can call them.
Now you can.
Yes.
Yeah,
they'll have it online.
Yeah,
now.
you could go online. You could go on Facebook, or you could call. They'll tell you
That's
their
a
daily
change.
strands.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was depressing. I mean,
No, I'm the same way. I only a couple of strains at my local dispensary really work for my condition, and they'll be in for like a week and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And so I have to stockpile basically, hoping it'll tide me over till it shows up again. It's crazy. Yeah.
And I don't know really. I don't buy
And the quality's not that good even of the flour.
Yeah, the quality is not good either. But you're charging people an astronomical amount for shake.
Yes.
And it's really not even that good. I went to Colorado. I seen ounces of shake for $60, and it smelled like really good. It's.
I mean, we have some good things in our program. We know it's organic. We know there's not going to be insecticides and fungicides in it, unlike Colorado, unlike California. New Jersey has done some things right, but the quality really needs to go up. Yeah.
But there's no third. The problem right now, though, is there's no third-party testing. So even if we know that we're getting this stuff right, there's no third-party oversight to know what's going on.
Well, the Department of Health is doing the testing.
To definitely prove what the real
THC
and all the counts really are.
But not just that, but also for safety spot testing.
Yeah.
So, that's where it's
The
really
bigger issue, though, it would be nice to test every batch. Right now, they'll test maybe once a year.
Right. The Department of Health is overwhelmed by them. They want to get out of the
They
business.
want to get out of that business. They want to start licensing independent testers. That would be a big change.
I don't know if you guys heard. Someone was telling me that went to Egg Harbor Township or one of them, and they said that they were getting weed from Harmony shipped down to them or something.
Yes, they're allowed to. The dispensaries exchange.
Yeah. Well, that's
Actually,
what they're doing.
Curaleaf was getting some from Harmony, for instance, recently. I think they've all done it now.
Have you been to Harmony?
I've not been to Harmony.
I've seen some stuff from there. It don't look too, it looks like an improvement.
Yeah. So people said the stuff coming down was good. So there are incremental improvements happening, but it needs to happen faster.
Well, the last time I was at Egg Harbor Township was 2 years ago, originally when I first got in the program, and it was absolutely terrible product.
Their quality has gone way up.
Hey, I know it has, and that's what I'm getting to. I went there a couple weeks back, and I got I was lucky enough to get the lemon skunk in bud, and which was very, improvement, and the Chem 4 wasn't bad either.
Yeah.
And that's
So it's there's been improvements in the program, but
Yeah.
there's only 6 dispensaries.
Yeah.
The state wants to double them to 12 in the near future,
Yeah.
but the first 6 took so long to roll out. I just don't know when we're going to see this. I hope it speeds up now that they've
Yeah.
learned the lessons from the first 6.
So that's what I was
but-
saying to Ken. I
yeah.
want to see the industry
Yeah.
get to New Jersey, and
Yeah.
with 6 dispensaries, you're not bringing a lot of jobs. We need more dispensaries.
We have 6 dispensaries for 7 million people. Colorado has about the same number of people. They have how many?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Hundreds. Yeah.
But also, if you look like right now, if we're treating for like opiate addiction, all right, the biggest way of treating for opiate addiction is using a tincture to stop the withdrawals. And there's only one dispensary in the whole state that has this, well, with a full-blown tincture. That
Breakwater and Curaleaf.
Curaleaf can
Curaleaf.
process, but the actual MCT oil underneath the tongue, where you can actually use terpene derivatives, is a big thing. There's only one. I'm sorry, that's what I meant by that. And the terpene derivatives, if you use like cannatonic, which that just went out of stock in MCT oil, that as an example, that is one of the only things, because it's a full-blown 1-to-1 that works for the body to stop what you need to get rid of an addiction, the withdrawal symptoms. And they don't have that all the time. So people that are having these issues, they don't have the full-blown medication that they need with the tinctures at every single location. It's not accessible. Like personally, I have to drive 45 minutes out of my way each way to do it.
Can't you also make it out of flour?
Yes, you could. You could. But this is at least where you know what you're getting,
Right.
and it's pure down.
A lot of people aren't going to know how to make their own out of flour.
Yeah, well, YouTube.
And it's too expensive to make your own out of flour.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, you mess up your batch,
Yeah.
you're done.
Okay.
So we're here with the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey. This is our 420 Legalize It event at the grounds of the State House in Trenton, New Jersey. We're just about over our extended time, our recommended time of 12 to 2. So we have a permit until 3 p.m. today. And so we'll be breaking down pretty soon. There's a couple board members here who haven't gotten to speak today. Jim Miller, I see, is here. He's talking to various people. I think I saw Joanne Zito. She'd like to come here and speak for a few minutes before we wrap things up.
Hey, Joanne, come talk.
And I know Joanne is a but Jim Miller is here and
likes to talk.
Where is Jim? He's always good for a few minutes of.
We can't get any of these people. By the way, the
conversation.
weather's really getting nice. So
Yes,
if you want
yes.
to come out State House, now's be a great time.
Although we're just about wrapping things up.
But
on
there'll be
our,
other events after us.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I don't know
there
if
she
they're.
is.
I don't know if they're permitted events. But,
well, that is an issue.
They may not be actually legally permitted, but
Are we going to break down?
pretty soon, I think.
Let's see if we can get. We want to
Well,
get.
put the headphones on. I got Honeybee from Oregon out there. She doesn't have these homegrown problems out there in Oregon, do you, Honeybee?
Hey, Honeybee.
No.
Hi, Honeybee. How are you?
I'm great. Happy 20, everyone.
Happy 420.
Woohoo.
What are you doing for 420 out there in Oregon? Whatever you want, right?
Exactly. Whatever I want.
Must be nice.
Have you ever been to
I'm
New
going to go
Jersey?
to all the 420 sales.
So, Honeybee, have you ever been to New Jersey?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
Just a couple times.
Yeah, we interviewed Honeybee on
That's what I thought,
CMMNJ TV and Princeton Community TV Studio.
So you're just calling to taunt us, huh?
Yeah, to tease us. How many plants,
Sure am.
Honeybee? How many plants can you grow in your house?
6.
6 now. It used to be more, though, right?
No, it's always been about that.
Are you actually
Well, it
growing?
depends on if you're a patient or recreational.
So patients can grow more.
Yes.
So do you
Sure can.
do you actually grow plants in your house?
I used to when I had a bigger house, but I just
Mhm.
have a little small one-bedroom apartment, so.
Yeah. A lot of
I
issues.
don't- do not
it's
at the
not
moment.
always easy for people to grow. You
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
And that's
No.
what the state needs to understand.
Yeah.
That
Is the issue.
Though I think with the newer technologies coming in for growing, that a lot of patients could probably grow 3 plants and flower, 3 vegetation. I think it's getting easier to grow plants yourself. The
It
LED
is,
lights,
you know,
yeah.
with all those cool tents and stuff.
Yeah, the grow tents and the LED lights, and even some of the irrigation systems. So it's getting easier.
It is.
I want to go
Pretty
through our
awesome how it's evolving.
I want to go through our list here. CMMNJ.org, sativacross.com, magicalbutter.com, UFCW, Local 152, DavidVersusAutism.org, medical-freedom.com, New Jersey Grannies for Grass, JacksonStorms.com, Arlo Glass, Gonzo Glass, OprahMachine.com, Pure Puff Vapor Supply, and Sativa Cross West.
Nice list.
Woohoo! That is big.
So, this is our opening day of the Season 5 podcast. Thank you, CMMNJ, really. You guys are the best. Thanks for all your help.
Pleasure.
This is the part of the show where we do our list. And the first person on our list is Cheryl Miller. We mentioned her before. She used to come to the State House, and Jim used to push her. And she fought for her rights. She fought for your rights. Sabina Rose, Diane, Gracie, Cindy May, Marie, Jack, Joan Ford, Randy Robertson, Holly Connolly, Bill Buckman, Chad, Jeremy, Joanne's husband, Colette, Matt, Troy, Russ, Roger, Jay, Ella, Hattie, Jackie, Anthony, Jake, Armando, Felicia, Lynn, Dan, Sean, Joyce, Lori, Frank, Brian, Flo, and Honeyb. Oh, hi, Jim Miller. I was just mentioning you and Cheryl, how you used to come here to the State House with her in her wheelchair and her bed for years.
No. Starting 1997, when she broke the law by using her medicine publicly while laying in her hospital bed out in front of the State House, right there.
Mm-hmm. Where they cut down those 3 trees.
Yeah.
See those 3 trees they cut down?
Yeah.
Mm.
Somehow, that's over my head with everything else going on. It's it's a wanton disregard and disrespect for, certain they cut them down before.
No, I didn't get a chance to talk to you today during the podcast at all.
No.
We have a lot of catching up to do.
Well, we got Thursday coming up.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. I want to
This week?
This week.
Well, I don't know. It's less than a week, so. Yeah.
But we're at the list right now, and
yeah, there's I don't know if he ever officially made the list, but Cheryl's son Carl, who died because of heroin, ultimately, a year and a half ago, that you got to always wonder that if he was legally able to use cannabis, he certainly would have.
Is that Carl with a K or with a C?
C.
I'm adding him right now.
Yeah.
We just added Flo. Morgan's mom died.
Yeah.
So we have to add
the list,
Flo.
but we know, 10% of patients died in that year. There were 6,000 patients, and 6,600 and 600 or so died. Around 10% died. It may be less than that, hopefully, as more patients that are in, certainly deserving of medicine, but with less dire consequences join the ranks. It won't be quite that high. But if there's 40,000 patients, don't think 5,000 aren't going to die. 3. So when things get delayed, it gets delayed for the rest of some people's lives, and my sympathy is with those who are left to remember the pain that didn't need to be. And I'll tell you, bro, in the end, we've had a lot to do with not taking anybody's crap about that, making it important. And what's our job? To make people feel bad. We want to make you cry. If we can make you cry, we can make you help us. So what we need to do is Surviving Family Members Day. Those who would take part in to call in and talk with people who will then be sad, but they understand with a purpose, not the dramatic purpose of selling papers or news time, like tune in later, watch a mother cry, lost her child. No, I'm talking about it's just not important to people. It's not hitting them in the face sometimes. And here I am telling you that. It's like the one person that understands that more than anybody alive in the state is you. You got the hardware to prove it. So it's going to be kind of weird, too, next week, getting this going again.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am, too.
It's been a great day so far. And
it has.
They tried to stop us, Jim. We kept fighting. They tried to take our power away. We're running off my truck right now.
What do you do this again?
But we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're having a great time.
We're having a ball.
Without power.
Without power. Without
You're
legalization.
not,
We don't care. We're having a ball.
Answer the easy question. What did they do? Padlock it? It's just not on. There's nobody there?
It's broken.
It's broken.
I got to make some calls, I guess, Monday.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't deliberate. No, you're not allowed. De facto, yes. I'm not talking about that. I haven't.
Conspiracy theorists would think otherwise, but no.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But the end result's the same. It's the same in the end. I've been waiting to use that's a Sublime thing, that song.
But listen, we're ending the show. Any last words, Jim, before I hand it over to Honeybee?
Hey, Honeybee. I would just say that. My words of wisdom about it's our job to make people feel bad. This is the important part. It's what gets people motivated, keeps them motivated. And you, Honeybee, are top of that list for my motivation. That you read the list and knowing of your personal loss just shores up what I'm saying about it's the people left behind. They have the power if they can transfer what they feel, The opposite of Tom Petty's, you don't know how it feels to be me. It's our job to make people know what it's like to feel like us. And, you reading that list is as apropos as can be. Yeah, that's it. She's making myself cry a little. Fuck me.
It's definitely as hard each week.
Show is yours, Honeybee.
Thank you. And the last person on the list is my son, Michael Dillon, who passed away from a seizure. Unfortunately, at the time of his passing, cannabis wasn't as cheap as it is now, so his medicine was expensive, and he couldn't afford it. And we couldn't afford it. We grew, we made him RSO, he had no seizures, it helped, but maintaining that was just, it was just too much. So I'm here to ask everyone to give 10% to help someone in need, because we all need help. So if everyone could just help each other in one way or another, then we won't have a sad mom, a sad dad, brothers, sisters, aunts. We won't have people sad because their loved one didn't have the medicine that they needed. So I come back each week, and everybody that I meet, I try to help. I try to educate them, because it's really hard to lose someone. It feels like a big giant hole in my soul that I ever can't feel. So in talking to other people and helping other people, it fills that void. And it helps me to be some kind of peace with him gone. You know, the holiday tomorrow, family's going to be together. And who's that one beautiful person, the son? So please, please, please give 10%, as we call it, a fighting. And thanks for having them on your list. It really helps me a lot.
You're welcome.
Hashtag they shall grow.
Hashtag they shall grow.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Oh, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
We will remember them.